Okay, well, we haven't done a video in a while. We've been rather busy, but there is a lot to catch up on. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to go over each of the items that has cropped up in great detail. There's just too much of it to cover, with Tweety incessantly bearing itself, Tweety drumpf, incessantly bearing itself under false accusation after false accusation, after lie, after ever unfolding scandals. Nunez lying about President Barack Obama wiretapping him. And now another stunning development. Idiot and unelected US traitor Drump, who will absolutely be connected to Putin and Russia tampering with our election, making the ridiculously absurd and insane insinuation and allegation that Susan Rice had done anything but her job protecting our country from U.S. traitors like Drump. The heat in the kitchen is getting incredibly hot. Drump, the unelected U.S. traitor, is starting to cook. First it was Drump's feet, his little tiny feet, cooking on the grill. Now the entire oven is hot on broil, and Drump has been shoved into it by Comey and the 17 U.S. intelligence agencies that have been investigating Drump since last July. There is no escape for U.S. traitor and unelected Drump. Every single member of its clan, of its close circle, will eventually be found to have been colluding with Russia to tamper with and interfere with our U.S. presidential election. That will turn out to be an undeniable fact. Just look at Drump's clan and their long time connection with and dealing with our enemy, Russia and Putin. Look at them all. Rex Tillerson, accepting awards from President Vladimir Putin, our enemy. It's incredible how many of them are connected. Carter Page.
But I'm just asking you straight up, just for a straight answer. You're saying I can't confirm or deny. USA Today's reported it. You told one reporter I had no meetings with the Russians. Now you're telling me I had no meetings with the Russians about the things they were talking about. I'm just trying to get a straight answer. Did you meet Sergei Kislyak in Cleveland? Did you talk to him?
I'm not going to deny that I talked with him.
Admitting openly that he spoke with Russian diplomats, and now it turns out that he associated with and passed U.S. documents to Russian spies. Sessions, a raging idiot who wasn't even asked about Russia, brought up Russia in response to Senator Al Franken's question that was unrelated to Russia.
If there is any evidence that anyone affiliated with the Trump campaign communicated with the Russian government in the course of this campaign, what will you do?
Senator Franken, I'm not aware of any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate at a time or two in that campaign, and I did not have communications with the Russians, and I'm unable to comment on it.
We begin with breaking news out of Washington. Attorney General Jeff Sessions facing calls to resign over 2 pre-election meetings with the Russian ambassador to the U.S.
Never a dull moment. Sessions had told lawmakers that he had not communicated with the Russians. Well, it turns out he had.
Later having to recuse itself from investigations probing into the Drump clan and their collusion with Russia. Now, these are not coincidences. Just look at the number of Drumpsy clan members who have associated intimately with Russia over the course of several years. You have absolute morons who have admitted, For example, Roger Stone, a witless idiot who took pride in mentioning he had a relationship and a conduit for communication with Julian Assange, a criminal who leaks information about our government, putting our nation at risk, at physical risk.
This is you discussing this on August 8th.
Yes.
With regard to the October surprise, what would be your forecast on that, given what Julian Assange has intimated he's going to do?
Well, it could be any number of things. I actually have communicated with Assange. I believe the next tranche of his documents pertain to the Clinton Foundation.
Roger Stone is a U.S. traitor. Mike Flynn.
Overnight news out of the nation's capital after just a few weeks on the job. President Trump's national security advisor, Michael Flynn, handing in his resignation.
It follows allegations that Flynn misled the administration about his discussions with the Russian ambassador.
Booted out for lying about his connection with not only Russia and having spoken to them specifically about sanctions, but also being a foreign agent, a paid foreign agent of Turkey. All you have to do is look at the number of idiots involved in this. U.S. traitors specifically linked directly to unelected U.S. traitor Drumpf, and you get the picture. Idiot and unqualified moron Jared Kushner.
Breaking news, CNN learning tonight that Jared Kushner's testimony on his dealings with Russian officials will be private.
An absolute unqualified buffoon meeting not only with Russian diplomats, but with spies, whether wittingly or unwittingly, met with spies from our enemy, Russia. Sessions 2, Mike Flynn, Paul Manafort.
Breaking news and new this morning, the Associated Press is reporting that President Trump's former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, secretly worked for a Russian billionaire to advance the interests of Russian President Vladimir Putin a decade ago and proposed an ambitious political strategy to undermine anti-Russian opposition across former Soviet republics. This report would appear to contradict assertions by the Trump administration and Manafort himself that he never worked for Russian interests. Just moments ago, I spoke to Press Secretary Sean Spicer, who told me the White House doesn't have any comment on this right now.
J.D. Gordon.
That's right. I'm here with J.D. Gordon, who served as the Director of National Security for the Policy Office under President Donald Trump's campaign. J.D., thanks so much for joining us today. I want to talk a little bit about the news of the day. Obviously, a lot of conversations here in Washington about communications that occurred between the Russian ambassador and advisors to President Donald Trump during his campaign for president. You spoke with the Russian ambassador at the Republican National Convention. Can you characterize this conversation for me? What did you guys talk about? How did this unfold?
Well, yes, I talked to Ambassador Kislyak there in Cleveland.
It just goes on and on. Drump is in the hot seat now, and he is panicking. Drump is under pressure now. He's in the hot seat, and it is in panic mode. Drump is tweeting out anything it can to try and distract and divert and obstruct. But the investigations will continue until they've gotten to the bottom of everything. And that is everything. Tweets are not going to keep them from prevailing. And Drump knows it. Accusing Susan Rice of committing a crime by having names unmasked in documents that she routinely looks at and routinely needs to see names of Americans unmasked to do her job, to do due diligence in her job, protecting America from certain events, schemes that are well warranted considering the parties that are trying to achieve their own goals are our enemies. Russia is an adversarial force. They are the enemy. They wish to destroy democracy. They wish to destroy our way of life. And what does this idiot and unelected US Traitor Drump do constantly praises them.
Donald Trump is gushing again over Vladimir Putin.
If he says great things about me, I'm going to say great things about him.
But tonight, it's Trump's comments about the Russian president's leadership made to NBC News, which have brought serious fallout.
I mean, the man has very strong control over a country. Now, it's a very different system, and I don't happen to like the system. But certainly in that system, he's been a leader far more than our president has been a leader.
Putin, the man who invaded Ukraine, annexed Crimea, backs the brutal Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad, crushes those who oppose him inside Russia, and may well be responsible for the hack of the Democratic National Committee's computers. That Vladimir Putin, Trump says, outshines President Obama.
Even as far as Drump's comments regarding al-Assad and the despicable gassing of human beings, especially children, whom Russia is deeply involved with, deeply, as a friend and an ally of al-Assad. Not a single word was mentioned, a negative word, about Russia from Drumpf in response to this horrifying act. Not a single word. And what has Drumpf done throughout this entire election process? Praise our enemy, Putin.
Putin even sent me a present, beautiful present with a beautiful note.
I spoke indirectly and directly with President Putin, who could not have been nicer. I have no relationship with Putin. I don't think I've ever met him. I never met him. I don't think I've ever met him.
You would know it if you did, wouldn't you?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. So I don't think I've ever met him. I mean, if he's in the same room or something, but I don't think so.
Never spoken to him on the phone?
I've been in Moscow. I didn't meet him in Moscow. Where?
Never spoken to him on the phone?
I have never spoken to him on the phone, no.
It's not a coincidence that everyone in his clan has dealt with and been tied to some scandal involving their contact and communication with Russia and Russian spies and other dignitaries and other representatives of our enemy Russia. These are not coincidences. Drumpf knows it, and as this oven heats up around that idiot, he is going to have some nervous breakdowns. Watch for them in the future. Watch for crazy tweets. This idiot Drumpf can't help itself. But one thing that's certain, that always happens with Drumpf, whatever Drumpf touches turns to shit. Rest assured. Number of Intelligence Committee members have now alluded to the fact that there is more than circumstantial evidence to connect Drumpf and his clan to Russia and collusion specifically regarding our past presidential election.
Have you seen any hard evidence of collusion yet?
I guess I would say this, that my impression is I wouldn't be surprised after all of this is said and done that some people end up in jail.
But you think some people are going to wind up in jail, not just one individual, but people, plural. Is that what you're saying?
That's my impression, yes.
Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that? Give us a little bit more, because that's obviously a very intriguing statement.
I wish I could, but I can't at this time.
But at this point, you're confident that at least some Trump associates will wind up in jail?
If I was betting, I would say yes. If somebody asked me my impression, my impression is that people will probably be charged, and I think people will probably go to jail.
Without sharing the evidence, because I know it's classified, but do you believe there's enough evidence already, evidence that you've seen that would justify someone going to jail or some people going to jail?
If the claims hold up, most likely.
I want to respectfully disagree with my dear friend Joaquin Castro, next to whom I sit on the Intelligence Committee. He said he would not be surprised if people ended up going to jail. I will be surprised if people don't end up going to jail.
The FBI, the NSA, DIA, and other intelligence agencies will get to the bottom of it. Rest assured. And the Intelligence Committee members that have alluded to the fact that there will probably be, in all likelihood, members of the Drumpf clan serving prison time, that is probably right. we're guessing that quite a few of them will serve prison time. And at this point, it's pretty apparent who the ringleader is. Yep. Unelected US Traitor Tweety Drumpf. Say your goodbyes to Drumpf now, because it will not be long before he goes away. Another person who is connected to Russia and this whole disastrous, horrible scandal is Mike Penis.
Well, let me say, hearing that story today was the first I heard of it.
That was not actually the question you were asked. But nobody asked when you heard of it. But twice, without being asked when he first heard of this, twice, Mike Pence volunteers that this is all news to him. Never heard this before.
You're disappointed by the story.
The first I heard of it.
It is impossible that this is the first time Mike Pence has heard of it. It's impossible. Mike Pence was the head of the transition. While all of those news stories about Mike Flynn being on the Turkish government's payroll were breaking, he was the head of the transition when Mike Flynn was being vetted for the National Security Advisor job. He was the head of the transition when Congress formally notified the head of the transition that Mike Flynn appears to be on a foreign government's payroll. He was the head of the transition when Mike Flynn's personal lawyers came and told the head of the transition that Mike Flynn maybe needed to register as a foreign agent. And now Mike Pence's explanation for this whole story, inexplicably, is he's never heard any of this.
Let me say, hearing that story today was the first I heard of it.
That cannot be true.
Mike Penis vetted idiot and U.S. traitor Mike Flynn. He ignored the connection with Turkey, a foreign agency with Turkey, paid, which is illegal. Foreign countries are not allowed to pay or compensate our former military, especially when they're connected to the unelected commander-in-chief. Also look for unelected U.S. traitor Mike Pence to be brought down in this also. He knew everything Flynn was up to. He knew all about it. So did Drumpf, of course. He was put up to it. He will be connected to it also. So you can also wish Mike Pence a sound, solid goodbye as well. So it's goodbye Drumpsies and hello America, which is already a great country. More so without U.S. traitors like unelected idiots Drumpf and Penis. Pence. Goodbye Drumpsies, you're out.
I want to respectfully disagree with my dear friend Joaquin Castro, next to whom I sit on the Intelligence Committee. He said he would not be surprised if people ended up going to jail. I will be surprised if people don't end up going to jail.